My name is Vin Armani. I am a Bitcoiner. Although the initial battle in the first Bitcoin hash war has all but ended, the aftermath of the event will still be felt for quite some time. 2 weeks ago, in my message to Bitcoiners warning of the coming hash war, I admonished everyone in the ecosystem to take notice. I warned that the consequences of all of our individual actions, or lack thereof, would be felt throughout the space. This has proven to be true. Today, as much of the marketplace is still smoldering from devastation wrought during battle, I have a message to share about a path forward as we begin to rebuild. On November 15th, 2018, the threat of which I warned in my previous message was repelled handily by a coalition of honest miners, developers, exchanges, and users. Attacks which had been planned by those who declared war and sought conquest were defeated through the cooperation of many parties. In honorable fashion, no counterattacks were launched by the victors. Their strategy was purely defensive in nature. The result is the existence of two blockchains where once there was one, two communities with a shared history who now view each other with enmity. As we survey the landscape and get our bearings, it should give us some comfort that we have been here before. From that story of the first war between brothers that forms the foundation of the great religions of the West, to the endless civil wars that have pitted brother against brother throughout the history of our species in every corner of the globe, we, as Bitcoiners, have become the next movement in a song which echoes through the ages. History tells us that this schism was inevitable. History also tells us that if we choose to learn from this moment, we can become better tomorrow than we are today. We have been given an opportunity to pivot from warfare to wisdom. Bitcoin is not a hierarchy. Information does not flow from a central authority through a structured chain of command. Bitcoin is a system of voluntary consensus, where nodes choose to participate in a network and information flows to a node from many other nodes, and from each node to many other nodes. This structural difference has led many to make the claim that there are no leaders in Bitcoin. This hash war has taught us that Bitcoin does indeed have leaders, and we ignore the existence of leaders, even those in networks that are not our own, at great risk. Bitcoin has leaders, but those leaders do not sit atop a pyramid of authority. Leaders in Bitcoin sit at the center of a network of consensus. Leaders in Bitcoin cannot force compliance. Leaders in Bitcoin can only lead by example, strengthening their connection to other nodes, other Bitcoiners, through behavior that other Bitcoiners choose to emulate. Leaders in Bitcoin are those individuals who can convince others that following a particular course of action is in their mutual best interest. This hash war was declared and launched by leaders who had convinced those with whom they were connected that inflicting pain on other Bitcoiners would yield positive gains for those who chose to live by the sword. This first hash war has given the lie to that idea. In the Bitcoin white paper, when Satoshi Nakamoto wrote of the incentive mechanism of Bitcoin, he wrote not of the structure of the network, but of the soul of the Bitcoiner. Of the self-regulating nature of Bitcoin, Satoshi said that a Bitcoiner ought to find it more profitable to play by the rules than to undermine the system and the validity of his own wealth. Satoshi made clear in this passage that in Bitcoin you cannot inflict pain on others without inflicting pain on yourself. A leader in Bitcoin who promotes inflicting pain on others is, therefore, simultaneously promoting inflicting pain on those who would emulate him. This first hash war has proven the deep truth of Satoshi's words about his creation. I believe that Satoshi would have been saddened by the events of the last 2 weeks. Trust in the security and stability of the entire cryptocurrency space has been shaken, but I also believe that he would have been the first to put his head down and get to the task of rebuilding what has been torn down by a long series of poor decisions. Until we acknowledge the part we as individuals played in these events, even and especially through our non-action and willful ignorance, we won't be able to prevent this from happening again. So, in this regard, I choose to lead by example, and hopefully others will see it as in their best interest to emulate me. When in June I saw the desire of nChain and CoinGeek to split the Bitcoin Cash chain, I called attention to what I had seen. But then, upon receiving resistance from the community as a whole to my observations, I stopped actively looking for a way to communicate what I understood so that it would have broader clarity and consistency. I became cynical and took the approach that they will get what is coming to them. That's the price they will pay for dismissing my warnings. I even went so far as to end my weekly podcast, which had been focusing on such issues. I was operating under the idea that I could profit from not communicating knowledge to others. While I did make some good investments personally and with my business, and was able to weather the storm better than some other Bitcoiners, I would have been much better served to have proceeded in trying to communicate my warning months ago, with more humility and empathy. I will never know if such action would have been able to prevent this hash war. I will never know because I didn't try. Witnessing the needless destruction of value and the cleaving of the Bitcoin Cash community, I can't help but desire to identify those most responsible and shame and ostracize them. But in Bitcoin, you cannot inflict pain on another Bitcoiner without inflicting pain on yourself. We just walk that path. Instead, moving forward, I'm prepared to set aside any desire for punitive action and instead to embrace and cooperate with anyone who has gained wisdom from this event and is dedicated, as I am, to not making the same sorts of mistakes that brought us here in the first place. Now is a time for reconciliation. Bitcoin is most valuable when Bitcoiners keep many strong connections to one another. As I said in my previous message, when I say Bitcoiners, I mean everyone in this space. We are all, regardless of coin or chain, here as a result of a Genesis block created and built upon beginning almost a decade ago. This hash war has proven that the connections between us are stronger than most of us believed. Devastation on a single cryptocurrency has devastating effects across all cryptocurrencies. In time, as our individual communities grow and become self-sufficient, this may not be the case, but today, with the next hash war surely not far away, we do not have the luxury of mocking the plight of others who have dedicated their time and wealth as we have to building this new world and culture. A wise man once said to me, "Leadership is finding a group of people traveling in a certain direction and standing in front of them." Now, more than any time in the history of Bitcoin, there is a large, vibrant, global community of individuals ready to travel in the direction of growing Bitcoin. Whether you are here for sound money, or innovative technology, financial sovereignty, or economic freedom, now is the time to begin moving in that direction with an even greater sense of purpose. And as you see others moving in the same direction, be bold enough to stand in front of them from time to time. It isn't that there are no leaders in Bitcoin, it's that there are millions. Let's do what is necessary so that we can look back and say that 10 years after Bitcoin was born, it was reborn, and we were there.